Namaskar, everyone. Welcome to the Saraswati Sangam Project Eminent Scholar Lecture Series. It is our honor to have Professor K. Rama Subramanian as our eminent speaker today. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to share a little bit about the Saraswati Sangam Project. The Saraswati Sangam Project is a center of excellence dedicated to advancing and supporting research and dissemination of scientific inquiry grounded in Vedic knowledge. Saraswati Sangam Project, in short, has several threads of programming to serve its mission. So we have our original content on TSSP YouTube channel. So please search for Saraswati Sangam on YouTube. We also support others' efforts such as Prachyam documentary series on Indian contributions to the world. TSSP confers awards such as the Eminent Scholar Award and research scholarships, as well as grassroots research by acharyas at various gurukuls in India, and is in the process of developing a Hindu science program for high school students. To introduce our speaker today, we are very honored to have Professor K. Rama Subramanian as our Eminent Scholar Lecture Series speaker today. Professor Rama Subramanian is the Institute Chair Professor at IIT Bombay in the Cell for Indian Science and Technology in Sanskrit. He holds a doctorate in theoretical physics and is among the world's preeminent experts on India's mathematical and astronomical heritage. He has many books and articles that bring to light the non-trivial mathematics contributions of the Kerala School of Mathematics in texts such as Ganita Yukti Bhasha, Karana Paddhati, and Tantra Sangraha. Professor Rama Subramanian is a recipient of the prestigious presidential award, Maharshi Bhadrayan Vyas Samman, and more recently was invited to give a distinguished lecture at the International Congress of Mathematicians, which is the induction to Hall of Fame for mathematicians. The Shankaracharya of Sringeri, Sharada Peetham, recognized his scholarship in Advait Vedant with the title Vidvat Pravara. We are very privileged to have conferred the 2022 TSSP Eminent Scholar Award on Professor Rama Subramanian in recognition of his contributions to advance ancient Vedic knowledge through the rigor of scientific inquiry and enhance the present-day awareness of the vast knowledge heritage of India. And in that connection, of course, what he is bringing to our knowledge enhancement is talking about Kālidasa's Śākuntalam and what inspiration it can offer in the modern world in being in harmony with nature. So I'm going to now turn it to Professor Rama Subramanian.
Namaste, and I thank the Saraswati Sangam Project for having invited me to give this talk. So this is a strange coincidence which happened that I was looking into the Śākuntalam text in connection with guiding a student, and this invitation came. So it just occurred to me that I should perhaps choose this topic and then share my views on this. So that is the origin of the title of this talk. So let me open my slides. So the screen, I think, is visible to all of you. So Kālidāsa, as all of us know, is a very, very gifted poet. There are several anecdotes connected with Kālidāsa. I may not get into describing all those anecdotes. But there is one interesting verse which is oft quoted about Kālidāsa is somebody throws a challenge that you have to come up with a verse which ends with Kakha Gagha. So apparently Kālidāsa immediately spontaneously composed Katvam Bale Kanchanamala Kasyaf Putri Kanakalatāyaha Haste Kinte Tali Patram Kavarekha Kakha Gagha. So that is the kind of genius Kālidāsa was. Śākuntalam is considered to be the most beautiful piece of literature, and it commences with a very interesting verse composed in Sraddhara meter. I'll just, as a Mangalacharanam, I would like to chant this verse. Ya srishtis prashturadya vahati vidhihutam Yahavil yachahotri edve kalam vidhattaha shruti vidhya guna yasthita vyapya vishvam Yamahus sarva bija prakritiriti yaya praninah pranavantaha pratyakshabhih prapannaha tanubhiravatuvaha tabhirashtabhirishaha. I'll come back to this verse at a later point in this talk. So this is the Mangalacharana verse. So this is the Mangalacharana verse, which is a prayer towards Ishvara and which portrays Ishvara in the manifest form of various things that we see around us. I'll come back to this verse at a later point. But this verse has been commented upon various commentators and it runs to 5-10 pages. This is a very brilliant verse. Before I move on to a few verses from Kālidāsa Śākuntalam, for those who are not that familiar with the Sahitya literature, so this is a very, very broad overview. So Kāvya is essentially something which has been composed by Kavi, who is a gifted person. Who can see something in the past, who can see something in the future, and who can bring in the moral values and worldly wisdom beautifully integrated with the piece of literature that he is creating. This Kāvya is divided into broadly two types. One they call it as Drishya Kāvya, the other call it as Shravya Kāvya. As the term itself implies, so something which can be seen, enacted by people, Drishya. So enacted by people, enacted by, see, after all, when you take any Kāvya, if you read, so if you are a Sahridaya, you should simply merge with that Kāvya and you should be able to visualize what the poet is depicting in your own mind. Then only the Rasaswada will happen. So what is the difference between Shravya and Drishya then? So Shravya, Raghuvamsha, Kumara Sambhavam, etc. are all known as Shravya Kāvya. Whereas Uttarramacharitam, Śākuntalam, Vikramorvashiyam, etc. will be described as Drishya Kāvya. What does it mean? Drishya here should be understood as something which can be seen by many together. If you read a Kāvya, you can enjoy and you can visualize, you can create the scenery in your own mind. But when it is enacted on a stage, you will be able to see that many others can also participate in that, and therefore we have this broad division of Drishya and Shravya. And speaking of the Kāvyas, so it is said, Kāvyeshu nāṭakam ramyam tatrapi ca Śākuntala, tatrapi ca chaturthonkaha, tatra shloka chatushtayam. So they say that there are 4 verses which really excel in Śākuntalam. And the Śākuntalam itself is the most beautiful Kāvya. This is how the verse basically speaks of the significance of the drama Śākuntalam. Okay. what are these 4 verses? So I am basically going to convey to you the lessons that one can learn how to be in harmony with nature from these 4 verses only, not beyond that. I may not even cover all the 4 verses, but this is what I want to basically share with you. The first of the 4 verses goes like this. Yasyatyadya Śākuntaleti hridayam samsprishtamutkantaya kanthastam bhita bāshpavritti karushaha chintājanam darshanam vaiklavyam mamatavadīdrishamidam snehadaranyaukasaha pidyante grihinaha kathan nutanaya vishlesha dukhairnavaihi. This verse basically portrays to us the feelings of Kasyapa. Those who are not familiar with this. So Kasyapa is the rishi who was the caretaker of Śākuntala. Śākuntala is not the daughter of Kasyapa, but he has been bringing up her from the childhood. So Kasyapa has to part away with Śākuntala and send her to Dushyanta, who had fallen in love with Śākuntala and had already married her in a pattern. Gandharva Vivaha has already taken place. Now is the time to send her off to Dushyanta. So that is the scene. And Kasyapa just imagines how the situation is in his own mind. So now Śākuntala, he is going to leave. So that is what is described by the first word. Yasyatyadya. Today she is going to leave. So what is happening to me? He is saying, Hridayam samsprishtamutkantaya. Utkantha has to be understood as anxiety. See, even when you want to part away with someone who is just going to return, see, there is always some anxiety, right? So he should just, my son has to go there. So he has to get the train. So he has to get admitted. So there are so many things which makes us feel anxious. So here he is going to part away once and for all. She may return, she may not return, right? So she has been with him for decades. And that sentiment is said, Hridayam samsprishtam, it is so touched my heart. Then kanthastambita bāshpavritti karushaha. As a result of that, kanthaha stambhitaha. There are different ways in which one can interpret this, but let us just take that the throat gets choked. I am not able to share anything. Then he says, Chinta jadam darshanam. Darshanam jadam means, so my vision is blocked. Okay. Why? This is our own experience. So when we think deeply, even whether you are walking or you are eating, things may happen, right? But certain chinta will occupy you. You may not even know, but that you are walking here, you are doing this, that, etc. Right? So darshanam, so the eyesight, eyes may be receiving the signals, but it will not be processed. What is processed inside the mind is only the chinta. It can be a problem about which you think. It can be various other things. So that is what he says, chinta. What is the chinta here? How is Śākuntala going to lead the life there? She has been living in an ashram. She does not know the environment of a city and that too of a palace and so on. So chinta jadam darshanam vaiklavyam mamatavadīdrishamidam snehādaranyaukasaha. This line itself is a very beautiful line. This verse is just to bring to you the charm with which Kālidāsa is able to portray the sentiments. This has nothing to do with the title of the talk, which I will be taking up in the next verse. This third quarter, it says, Vaiklavyam Mama. Each and every word here has the potential to convey several things behind the scene. Vaiklavyam is a sense of agony. Okay, so a sense of despondency that you are experiencing in your own mind. He says, Mama Vaiklavyam. Why should he say Mama? After all, Kasyapa is a rishi. Bhagavad Gita says, Harsha Bhayodvegaihi Muktoyas Sajame Priyaha. You should be free from Harsha, Marsha, and so on. Right? So here, Sanyoga Viprayogantaha. This rishi, after all, Śākuntala came someday. He has to go away. Why are you experiencing agony? Vaiklavyam Mama. He says, Mama Vaiklavyam means even for me. For me means, so he is supposed to have gotten rid of Ragadvesha and so on. Even for me, it is very difficult. Idrisham. Idrisham is one's own experience. Anubhavaika Vidya. Okay. Suppose you have a toothache. Okay. So I may say, hey, after all, toothache. Only when it comes to you, you will know. Right? So that is what? Anubhavaika Vidya. This agony that I am experiencing. Okay. Tavadidrishamidam. And that too, he says, Snehat. Snehat means it is by virtue of being with her for so many years, I have got this attachment towards her. She is not even my own daughter. Right? No DNA connection. Snehat, and he says, Aranyokasaha. Aranyokasaha, we are just forest dwellers. Okay. So we don't have any sort of a permanent thing. Somebody comes, somebody goes. So this is the kind of experience that I'm experiencing. Even being a rishi and so on and so forth. Then he says, Pidyante grihinaha kathan nutanaya vishlesha dukhairnavaihi. If this is the case with me, then what to speak of people who have brought out the children for about 20 years, 25 years, nowadays maybe 30 years, when they part away with that. Okay. Grihinaha kathan tanaya vishlesha dukhairnavaihi. So this is just to tell you how Kālidāsa is able to very, very effectively convey the human emotions, right? Okay. The next verse of the Shloka Chatushtaya is this. This is a very, very powerful verse, which I really liked. So we will be spending some time on this and thoughts connected with this. This goes as Patum na prathamam vyavasyati jalam Yushmasvapiteshu ya nādatte priyamandana pibhavatam snehena ya pallavam Adyevah kusuma prasuti samaye yasya bhavatyutsavaha seyam yati Śākuntala patigraham sarvairanujñāyatam. The poet tries to bring in the nature of Śākuntala here. It is not merely the nature of Śākuntala that the poet wants to convey here. He wants to essentially convey how every human being has to be dealing with the nature around him. This is what poets essentially do. So poets try to convey to you how you have to conduct yourself. So in the company of human beings, so in the company of nature, how you have to view things and so on and so forth. Kāvyam yashase arthakrite vyavaharavide shivetarakshataya. You understand? So this Shiva, this Mangala, is not necessarily brought only by human beings around us. So it is the nature which has to bless us. After all, human being can only try to extract something from nature and try to bring in more comfort for him than what nature provides naturally. So here the nature, if it becomes furious, so you have to learn to respect nature. And there are two ways to look at it. One is a view that nature is inert, brute, and stupid. The other is a certain vision in which you are able to place yourself as one among the entities in nature. That you are not a very special entity. And if at all there is a speciality, what is the kind of speciality? This is what we need to understand. And in treating others, whether it is human being or nature, with great love and affection, you essentially try to build a certain harmony around you, which makes you feel much more happier than being otherwise. So here you see the poet says, Patum na prathamam vyavasyati jalam. The Śākuntala, prathamam patum na vyavasyati. What does it mean? Prathamam means first. So he says she will not consume even water before she takes care of the need of the plants around her. Yushma swapiteshu ya. So this verse is uttered by Kasyapa towards the flora with which Śākuntala was dwelling all the time. Okay? So he says, he addresses the flora. See, Patum na prathamam vyavasyati jalam. Yushmasu. When he says Yushmasu, it refers to the plants and creepers with which Śākuntala was playing. Yushmasvapiteshu ya nādatte priyamandanapi. Priyamandana means one who is fond of decorating. This decoration can be either external to an idol or oneself or any other thing for that matter. And when something is just coming freshly, okay, so offered by the tree, so though she loves to decorate, plucking them, she is so affectionate that she feels that even the process of plucking may hurt you, and therefore she resists herself from doing that. Bhavatam snehena ya pallavam. She does not take it. Then he says, Adyevah kusuma prasuti samaye yasya bhavatyutsavah. Kusuma prasuti samaye, when it just starts budding, okay, the tree, the creeper, whatever it is. Yasyaha utsavo bhavati. Utsavo bhavati means it is a great celebration for her. Okay. Seyam yati Śākuntala patigriham. So that's Śākuntala. Okay. So who was taking care of you so fondly and affectionately, so he is going to leave, okay, this place, patigriham. Okay. Sarvair anujñāyatam. So this is where the interesting part comes. He says, may you all permit her to leave. Okay. Anujñā is basically permission, right? So may you all permit her to leave. This is a statement which is being made by Kasyapa towards flora. Now the question is, does it make sense to seek permission to the flora around? Right? After all, they are only insentient beings. Do they have emotion? Do they have intelligence? Do they have consciousness? They don't have any of them. So why does he say? In a household, normally, if someone is so loving and affectionate, you will say, okay, I'll go and come back. But if someone is very angry, you will not even say go, right? Don't even take permission. Don't even say anything. Just get up. Right? So sometimes it happens. You're just angry, you don't feel like facing him, and then you go. Now he is seeking permission. Now the other aspect is, see, so among two people One may be loving to the other may not be loving. Here, where it can happen. Now, Śākuntala may be loving these creepers, but the creepers, do they love Śākuntala? It's like, so you may be very fond of the puppy, but the puppy need not be fond of you, right? Now, here the question is, so he is saying clearly that you may have to permit, right? Which means, so there is a certain strong feeling that has been brought out by the poet. Okay. Is it a mere poetic fancy or is it a meaningful act which he is doing? So this is something which we have to understand and appreciate. Now let us see. So there are certain brain functions which today we classify as the rationality, intelligence, creativity, empathy, love, etc., etc. Does it exist only in human beings or does it exist in flora and fauna? This is the question. So if you probe deeply into this question, it's not so easy to say yes or no to them. Certain things which we were saying no, we cannot say no anymore. That is how, we have come up with certain experiments with various tools in the medical discipline. We are able to study certain processes with more powerful equipment, and therefore we will not be able to certainly say no. And there are hundreds and thousands of people who keep studying animal behavior, this behavior, that behavior, but behavior of honeybee, behavior of butterfly, all that they are studying. So definitely with respect to fauna, we cannot say, right, that they do not have any kind of empathy, love, etc., etc. So we do see. But there is a distinction between human and other things. What is the distinction that we are trying to bring out? So there are some studies which have been done. So animal also, dog also has brain, you also have brain, right? Donkey also has brain, you also have brain. So all of us have. But there is one distinction which people have seen, and the distinction is the ratio of the body mass to the brain mass, right? So that is very, very high in a human being. So this is one thing that we have seen. So there are various faculties which they are blessed with, which we are not blessed with. Those are all different things. But anyway, this human considers himself as a superior. Okay. So this fantastic brain that you have blessed with, what is it for? Is it for just to treat them inferior and crush them? Or is it to treat them so on par with you? So this is the question. Okay. So are we using it properly is a question. So this vision that is being provided by Kālidāsa is something which will be extremely useful, and this has been highly held by various people today. So there are various studies which have come in connection with this. And see, it need not necessarily mean that they should have the kind of creativity, they should have the kind of thing that you have. But this very vision that you have so helps you to live in harmony, which is going to make the whole world more harmonious. So that is the idea that we are trying to bring in here. So we know, for instance, these are all scenes, see, wherein they clearly show, so empathy, love, etc., etc. There is a very nice verse also. Ahara nidra bhayamaithunancha samanyametatu pashubhiranavama. Maithunam cannot happen without this. Mohitesham adhiko visheshaha dharmena hina pashubhis samanaha. We say it. Now, we'll go back to Śākuntalam. Soon after that verse was rendered by Kasyapa, so Kasyapa says, Sarvair anujñāyatam, right? May you all so give your permission to her, bless her as she is living. Now the next verse goes, Anumatagamana Śākuntala Tarubhiriyam Vanavasa Bandhubhihi Parabhrita Virutam Kalam Yatha Prativachani Kritamebhiridrisham. The word Parabhrit refers to cuckoo birds. Okay. So Parabhrita Virutam means it is basically the cuckoo birds. So they make some sound. And then Kasyapa says, the sound that is being made, I have been addressing these trees and creepers and so on. So the sound that cuckoo bird. So these trees have replied through the cuckoo birds. Parabhrita Virutam Prativachani Kritamebhiridrisham. Now you look at little more. He further says, Ramyantarah Kamalini Haritaisarobhihi. So these are two verses that we see. There are one more verse, but anyway. So here he says, Śākuntala has to take a long journey, right? So from here to there. So she has to cross various portions of the forest and then reach there. So here the nature has to sort of bless her. So therefore, you will be blessed by nature is what is being stated here. Kamalini haritais sarobhihi chayadrumaihi niyamitarkamayukhatapaha bhuyat kusheshaya rajo mrudurenu rasyaha shantanukula pavanascha shivascha panthaha. See, the prayer here is to the nature once again. So it is said, so if you are mocking, okay, so if the wind is going to blow against you, what will you do? You cannot walk. So therefore, it is being prayed. Shantanukula pavanascha. So does it happen? Yes, it happens. So there are various aspects which we can associate with this. And our own experiences will be able to see that this kind of reverence that we have will give us a certain intuition to take the right decision. So even if it were there, then we may be saved and so on. So that is how the poet brings in Shantanukula pavanascha shivascha pantha. Then the last thing is, in this connection, Gautami is wife of Kasyapa. She says, Jate Nyati jana snigdhabhihi anujnyata gamana asi tapovana devatabhihi. You see the vision. So tapovana devatabhihi. So you see the divinity in all beings. Okay. Tapovana devatabhihi anujnyata gamana asi. So they have permitted you to move. How are they? Nyati jana snigdhabhihi. They have been so affectionate to you. Okay, like a very, very close relative. And therefore, she says, Pranama Bhagavati. See? So you show your veneration to them by offering a namaskara. Understand? So this was something which is very interesting. See? This Narendra Modi, when he went into the book. So whether he might not have read all this, Śākuntalam. But anyway, the point is, so that you show reverence to these things. So now even today, when you go to Ganga, people will offer their venerations to that. Okay. So this is having a reverential attitude to those which we may describe as insentient beings. It is not something which is to be encouraged. Nowadays, it's somewhat, see, this is a very, very difficult situation now. So this has to be something which has to be brought by a certain lifestyle. Otherwise, this doesn't come. Okay. So this is something which is very, very important for us. I'll tell you, what is it Kālidāsa trying to convey? Is he trying to cook up something, or is it something which has been there in the tradition? For this, I want to just give you a couple of mantras. So the point I wanted to convey was, this kavya is essentially bringing in the vision that has been seen by seers through their penance for several years. So which is documented in the Vedic literature. Now you find a couple of mantras. Itte gravanna chichidusomarajan priyanyanga niswathita parogumshi tat sandhatsva ajyeno tavardhayasva. Even when they do the sacrifice, so they even cut this soma creeper. So when they cut the soma creeper and then they try to crush it, etc. So the priest is supposed to tell this. Okay, I am trying to take parts of you. I'm sure that this is going to be painful to you. See the kind of attitude. So this is likely to be painful to you. So may you kindly bear with the pain. It is like asking some worker, right? So you make him work, toil, but then at least you should just say, so it has been so difficult for you, and so on and so forth, right? So this is like this. You just treat them on par. See, Priyanyangani smutita tat sandhatsva. So then they offer something and they ajyena utavardhayasva. May you grow further. So this is what I can offer. So that is the kind of a thing. So it is the Vedic scripture. So that is what Kālidāsa brings into his kavya, right? Then you have one more. Vanaspate shatavalisho viroha sahasravalishavi vayagruhema. See, it also said, so may you grow thousandfold. So that is the kind of prayerful attitude which is found in the Vedic literature, which has been brought out by Kālidāsa in his Śākuntalam. Okay, so how you treat the nature. Okay. Now, there is only one verse which I am going to say. The third verse, maybe I'll just skip of the 4 verses. One is, see, when I coined this title, see, so when we see this, so bringing in a certain harmony, right? And with nature is, see, the nature being in harmony. So first one has to start with oneself. So if this is not there, then nowhere things will come. So you may have to first deal with human beings. Then of course you will deal with other beings. Now he's saying, so when she is leaving, okay, to the other house, so there are 5 messages which are being conveyed to her. So these 5 messages, may you kindly imbibe. And by imbibing so, you will be able to handle yourself better, irrespective of whom with you are, and the kind of situations which you are going to face. Okay? So, Sushrushasva Gurun is the first message. The Sushrushasva should be understood as, see, I would say, may you have a certain mindset to at least listen to the others, elderly people. What may hurt people is, so if you ignore them, not even listening to what they are saying. If you listen and then try to argue out, so say this doesn't suit me, so may you kindly forgive me for not doing this, is all okay. You just don't even listen, you just keep going. Right? Sushrushasva is serving. Serving after listening, at least listening. Guru, elderly people. Guru Priyasakhi Vrittim Sapatni Jane. The second message is, so there may be other wives of the king. So may you be so friendly to them. What does this mean? This means that never ever try to encourage even an iota of jealousy in you. Okay? Be a true friend. So if something good happens to them, if he is so affectionate to her, let him be. Okay? Behave like a very, very dear friend. The third thing is also extremely important. Viprakritapi roshanataya masma pratipangamaha. Even if he shows anger, okay, don't bounce back upon him. Okay, masma pratipam gamaha. So then he says, see, that is why in Bhagavad Gita, it's not that the anger will not arise. It's not that the desire will not arise, but you have to sort of suppress it. That is why he said, Shaknoti heva yasodham praksharira vimokshanati kamakrodhodbhavam vegam. You understand? So Shaknoti iha yasodham. Not that it may not arise. So that is a completely different kind of a state. But for normal beings, you may have to acquire the skills to control them. Praksharira vimokshanat kama krodha udbhavam vegam. That's what he said. Okay. So in Vega, you may blurt out something. Forever it will be a problem later. So that is why it is said, Roshanataya masma pratipam gamaha bhuyishtham bhava dakshina parijane is also very important. Okay. Dakshina parijane bhava. Dakshina here means be amiable to them. And that too dependence. Normally what happens is people who are dependent, these people will keep on shouting. You see? So this you should not do. So then only you will be able to enjoy the love and affection which they show towards you. Bhagyeshvanutsekini. So if something comes, good thing happens. It is all because of me. You should not say. Understand? Anutsekini. So then finally he says, Yantevam grihini padam yuvataya. So when these young ladies go to the other house, if they possess these qualities, then they will be good homemakers. So may you treat this as homely environment. What is homely? Right? This is what essentially they will be good homemakers. Otherwise, they will be source of agony to the other family. That is how it is said. Okay. So we will soon wind up. This is an interesting verse which occurs slightly before the 3-4 verses which I was quoting. This has a very, very important message. And in connection with the previous verse, so this is to be understood. So Śākuntala was in a different state. So before this whole narrative of sending her happens, she was just repeatedly thinking of. Okay, and I went into some little sorrowful state. So when I'm in an anxious state and so on. So there, the poet conveys a nice message. He says, Yatye katosta shikharam patiroshadhinam avishkrata runavurasaraye katurkaha tejodvayasya yugapad vyasano dayabhyam loko niyamyataivatmadashantareshu. He says, so it is a certain description. See, the beauty of great poets is they will be trying to describe a certain situation and they just use that situation to convey a powerful message to you, which will be extremely useful for you in your day-to-day life. So the situation is, so it just says this fellow has to go. What is the time? Okay. So the Shishya is supposed to go and find out what the time is. Guru says. Okay, those days you don't have this clock, right? You don't check your mobile and then get the time. So he just goes out and then sees the stars. So from the star, we'll just tell the time. Now, so he just observes almost to the twilight. Okay, assume it is a Purnima. So he says, Yatyekatosta shikharam patiroshadhinam. Patiroshadhinam refers to moon here. So on the one side, I see the moon getting into the western horizon. On the other side, I see the twilight of the sun about to rise. Okay. Yatyekatosta shikharam patiroshadhinam avishkrita arunavurasaraye katurkaha. Now he gives a beautiful message. Tejodvayasya yugavad vyasano dayabhyam. So setting and rising. He is a rising star means what? He is coming up very well in the life. His time is over, he has just set. Right? So vyasana udaya here refers to. So this situation that happened to human beings. Sometimes luck will be favorable to you. Sometimes it may not be favorable to you. Both are the effects of our own karma. We have to understand. So this is just a cycle which happens. That is what he is trying to say. Tejodvayasya yugabad vyasano dayabhyam loko niyamyata iva atmadashantareshu. So This is what one has to understand. If today, something did not work well for me, it doesn't mean that it will be ever. So there are many people like this. For 2 years, nothing worked. So what? So you can't be losing your enthusiasm. By losing enthusiasm, what do you gain? At least keeping enthusiasm, you will gain something. There is a possibility. So this is what he is trying to convey, a powerful message. See, there is a nice verse, Sukham apatitam sevyam, dukham apatitam tatha. Chakavat parivartante, dukhani cha sukhani cha. So there is a nice message that is conveyed through here. Now, we will come to a few remarks. So I have been given some 15 minutes. We should just do. So you see, considering the benefits, what happened today is the benefits. There's a lot of benefits which has been gained by the advent of science and technology today. As a result, so people thought, see, I have been in various discussions in various forums for the past couple of decades. So these people think that, so let us focus only on science and technology. How does it work? That cannot give you this kind of a message. Therefore, it is very, very important to study this kavya, how to respect nature. See? So that is what, so this illusioned, this thought process which has set into the society, that let us focus only on this can be set aside, is not going to really work. And it is not that such beautiful kavyas are there only in Sanskrit language, it is there in other languages. People have even started questioning. So do we necessarily have this at all? We should definitely have. Okay? Otherwise, this cannot be conveyed. After all, even if you do other things, we should understand that. See, there is a certain period in which you want to relax. See, and this kind of literature is what will provide you that relaxed state of mind. So therefore, it is very, very important to understand. Okay. So this is what will be rather man-making. Okay. So what makes you a man? So there are various scientists whom we have seen also. So if they are not sort of exposed to this, then they will be very eccentric. And as a result, so they will only create an environment in which others be put to trouble. And they will also put themselves to trouble. So therefore, Aurobindo says, see, as long as Sanskrit language and its literature endures and influences the life of our people, so long the basic genius of India will continue. Okay. And there are various reasons why one has to study kavya, which has been brilliantly brought out by Mamata. But here I would like to tell you, I started with this Mangalacharana verse. What does Kālidāsa want to convey through that Mangalacharana? That is what I wanted to tell you. See, no human being who is endowed with the faculty of thinking would like to venture to do something which is likely to hurt him, right? So what does this verse actually mean? So he says, there are various things around you. It is all the manifestation of one thing. He says, Ya srishti srashturadya vahati vidhihutam Ya havihi yachahotri. The thing that is being offered, the one who is offering, the time which is being decided by you to offer. So the timekeeping system, etc. So all of them are essentially one thing which got manifested in various forms. Okay. So the vision that the Veda provides, see, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma has been brought out in this verse by Kālidāsa. The Sarvatma Bhava. Okay. So Tanuhu, Kasya Tanuhu, that primordial entity, Tasya Tanuhu, whether it is Surya. So the point is, so whether it is a tree, whether it is something else, whether it is a water body, so you try to have that reverential attitude. That is one form of nature, I am another form of nature. That is all. See, that is the kind of a bhava, whether it is a hotri or it is apaha. See, there are 5 natural things which are being listed here in a very poetic form. So I will not explain to that. So the point is, it is the same self that it is dwelling in all beings. So the kind of consciousness that get manifests in a particular form may vary. In a donkey, it may be something. In a monkey, it may be something. So in an elephant, it may be something. In a jellyfish, it may be something. Okay. So this nature of consciousness and the kind of characteristics that it exhibits may be varying, but you don't have the business to treat them as something which is far, far, far inferior to you, and so on. Okay. So this is the kind of thing that Kālidāsa tries to convey. The Sarvatma Bhava is what is conveyed through this verse. And there is one thing which, I mean, many of you maybe, so since it is a US audience, etc., I thought I'll just bring. So recently I came across this very interesting quote by T.S. Eliot. So this T.S. Eliot basically says, this is a very, very interesting statement that he makes. He says, the European philosophers look like schoolboys, he says, compared to the kind of philosophy that has been developed in the Eastern tradition. So that is what he's trying to say. See, this is a very interesting quote. So maybe you would like to read later. So he says, the subtleties make most of the great European philosophers look like schoolboys. See, that is how he says. He's a great poet. Okay. And this is the kind of impact that these kāvyas and the literature have provided upon him. See, so that's what makes him declare openly so much. Okay, when he studied, got exposed to this. The last slide. So the Vedic vision, which Kālidāsa has brought in this chapter, that man and the nature are essentially the product of one fabric. So this undivided fabric. So that kind of a vision has been brilliantly integrated by Kālidāsa in various contexts. That is what we need to appreciate, that Shastric vision. And there are a few instances which I have actually left out, even in this chapter, wherein he says, so after offering fire unto the fire, offerings into the fire, he just says, may this protect you. So that kind of a thing is not easily understandable by people unless they think deeply. So there are various things which we need to study and understand. And this Pancha Mahayajna which we have is what she was doing. It is a Bhuta Yajna. Understand? So what she was doing is essentially that. So this is again a Vedic prescription. So finally, Kālidāsa ends this Śākuntalam with this verse: Pravartatam prakriti-hitaya parthivaha sarasvati shruti mahatam mahiyadam mamapi chakshapayatu nilalohitaha punarbhavam parikata shaktiratma bhuhu. So this prakriti-hitaya can be understood in many, many ways. Hitaya, prakriti, can refer to the janas. Hitaya can refer to this here, the prakriti can refer to the whole things around you. Pravartatam prakriti hitaya parthivaha. May the decisions taken by the king be such that it is something which is good for the prakriti. Okay. Saraswati shruti mahatam mahiyadam. So shruti mahatam Saraswati means, so those who have studied this Vedic scriptures and they have developed this vision, may their voice have a higher position. After all, he has to listen to others, right? If he thinks, then there could be a serious problem. Therefore, say, may this happen. Mamapi chakshapayatu is ultimately, so may I also be free. Kshapayatu nilalohitaha punarbhavam parikata shaktiratma bhuhu. So this idea that is being conveyed by Kālidāsa through this is something which is sort of resurfacing as I see. Okay, deep ecology is something which they call today. Okay? That is the kind of terminology that has got developed. So this is something which is extremely important. And the sooner I think we try to imbibe this into our lifestyle. It doesn't mean that you should not use this Apple Pencil So that nothing means, but you should definitely not waste. You should also be conservative and so on. So this kind of a thing should be definitely integrated, and that will definitely create a better future for us. Thank you for providing me this opportunity. Namaste. I return back.
Thank you so much, Professor Rama Subramanian. This was mesmerizing, and I'm almost feeling sad that we didn't have more time to hear and listen to your narration, which was actually very visual experience, even though you just had a few verses and you described them in words, but you did exactly what you said, very experiential in visual experience of the words coming to life. And also you actually gave us much more than just being in harmony with nature in just the few verses. So thank you so much. I want to request if the audiences have any questions that they can type into the chat window. I have a couple of questions. You mentioned Eliot, T.S. Eliot, and I always wonder, Professor Rama Subramanian, that Kālidāsa as a phenomenal contributor in the Indian traditions of poetry is probably much less known than to our current generations than maybe Shakespeare or T.S. Eliot and other names that may spring up. If you start thinking, so what's your view of why that is, and how can that be fixed?
See, so you are perhaps in an environment where you see only those kinds of kids. The reason for quoting this T.S. Eliot was simple. Of course, as Eliot himself says, that so that looks like a mountain and this looks like a mole when I see deeply. This is something which is not even exposed to the children. So there is a certain problem which has crept into our society, wherein we feel that this is all meaningless. And if we are able to convey it through the words of who they value, so then I think it makes sense. It is for this reason I wanted to just bring in, because there is a certain craze for something else which is there in the society. And this has partially to do with the generations that were denied this, and they were beaten up with a certain kind of a thought process repeatedly. So I think that mindset has to go away. And the moment we try to expose this, then I think nobody can stop. The beauty, once it is exposed, who can stop you from enjoying? So it is, we have to provide this platform. Then they will automatically realize. It is like a T.S. Eliot before he had read this.
Exactly.
See, he would have felt that this is the best thing. But then once you have something else, it is like, so you have only one variety of mango, right? So if you get the other kind of mango, say those who are in US, etc., they try to import from here. So this Japanese girl who is there, so she says, so this mango will cost some 3,000 rupees there. See? Why? I mean, it is so tasty. So if you give this and that, why would I choose the other one?
The mango comparison is pretty phenomenal. I wanted to ask, of course, Kālidāsa is still among the better known poets of still many centuries ago. What are the few other names you'd like to mention here that should be at the same level as any others that are better known?
Yeah, there is one verse which, see, Upama Kālidāsasya bhārave arthagauravam dandinah padalālityam maghe santi trayo gunaha. So these are very well known in those days. So which everybody who comes up in this tradition learns. So Kālidāsa, Upama Kālidāsasya, Upama Utpreksha, etc. It is so fantastic in Kālidāsa. Bhāravehe arthagauravam. Arthagaur, Bharavi is another name. Arthagauravam means the kind of depth, the kind of deep thoughts that he is able to provide. Okay, so he is so famous for that. Dandinah padalālityam. See the kind of flow. See, there is a beautiful rhythm that you can see. So that itself will be so enchanting even if you do not understand, right? So that also plays a major role. And the language is so rich that it can provide you any kind of word that you want, and then you can really create that kind of alliteration. Maghe and Maghe santi trayo gunaha. Magha. So this is so there. The point is, there is something called Uttara Rama Charitam. In fact, this is Bhavabhuti. He is one of the oldest poets. Uttare Ramacharite Bhavabhutir Vishishyate. So there is a Kadambari. So there are so many things that one can think of. It is so vast that it's a little difficult. So each one is so famous for something. And unfortunately, so even Bhagavad Gita is not known. So can you remember, can you believe? So I went to Montreal. So when I went to Montreal, I mean, this is 20 years ago, something like that, maybe 15 years ago. See, this summer vacation was there, parents had to leave their children. So they all put them in some temple. So because I was staying in some temple, that person asked me, why don't you engage these children? So around 20 people were there. So, so I started engaging them. Then I asked him, so have you heard of Bhagavad Gita? I mean, they were all 15, 20 years old, some of them. Some of them were kids. They said, no. So that is the kind of thing. So why speak of Bharavi and Bhasa?
Very true, very true. So I hope you'll oblige us with more lectures and to expose us to the names that you mentioned, and also more from Kālidasa's work. But since I don't see any questions, I will look to wrap up this session. So sure. Thank you so much for
sparing our time, 1 hour.
Your
Thank
time,
you.
your time for us, and for the audiences. Thank you so much for joining. We will put the recording up in our YouTube channel. So please look up on YouTube for Saraswati Sangam, and we will post this video and phenomenal session. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Anna.
Namaste.